Okay. I'm about to say something that I honestly never thought I would ever say. And it's this: boundaries are adding to your overfunctioning. Hear me out. Hear me out. So when I started to heal my codependency, I was like, okay, I've never set boundaries in my life, but I can tell that I need them. I need them, and I need them yesterday, you know? I need them yesterday, yesteryear. And it was a big step for me because it terrified me. Boundaries, honestly, are terrifying if you are used to overfunctioning, and likely you're overfunctioning because you don't have boundaries. But that doesn't actually mean that you want to go headfirst into boundary setting. This is counterintuitive. This doesn't make sense. It's the opposite of what you think you need to be. But here's why I want you to shift the way you're approaching your overfunctioning. Because likely overfunctioning is coming from a desire to treat your own underlying anxiety by managing someone else's anxiety. And you feel anxious about asking for help or letting others fulfill their own part of the work because you're afraid of how they're going to respond, or you're afraid that the work won't get done, especially if you're in coercive dynamics or coercive relationships where control isn't even spoken. It's very much written into the relational contract. You don't actually have someone telling you you have to do all the work, but you're made to feel so uncomfortable that you cannot resist not doing the work. And I honestly feel that sometimes our anxiety can feel coercive in that way. Codependency itself can feel coercive in that way, and that we can't even bring ourselves not to overfunction. Rest feels dangerous. It feels generally like something bad will happen if you don't complete this task. If setting boundaries is your first initiative to treating your overfunctioning, what you're going to come up against is all of the barriers within that system, whether it's that workplace or that relationship that was causing you to overfunction in the first place. And you're going to not have tools to actually meet that combative energy that was keeping you in a place where you felt you had to do everything. Oftentimes, when we're overfunctioning, we think it's an us problem, but it's actually a systemic problem. It's not just that, oh, we want to be in control, we have trouble letting go, we have trouble seeking help, we have trouble receiving and being in the feminine and blah, blah, blah. Usually it's a systemic problem. It's a systemic issue that has caused you to feel that it is unsafe not to overfunction, that either harm will come to you or others if you're not doing everything, right? If you're not managing everything. And sometimes that is literal, especially if you're in an abusive dynamic and there are other vulnerable people involved. You may have to take responsibility just to make sure that harm isn't done to others. And so you can understand why in those cases, going and setting boundaries is going to feel impossible for your nervous system, even if it's small boundaries. And in these cases, you can imagine how much guilt one can feel and taking a step back or trying to set a boundary. It's an immense amount of guilt and shame because you do have a responsibility, even though there may be other individuals who could potentially step up if you know that they won't, and it could really cause harm. Your system then really, holds on to this programming that I cannot let go of control, and I do need to overfunction, and I need to do everything. So sometimes it's literal, but also sometimes it's not. It could be from childhood, a residue from childhood of not feeling safe. And even though our modern day conflict, right, the systems that we're in modern day, currently in the now, aren't threatening to our well-being, it might still be encoded in your body that it is. And so your nervous system still behaves as though it is. It is unsafe not to. And when we summarize all of this by calling it just simply overfunctioning, you're overfunctioning, even the use of that word over, that prefix over, makes it feel like you're doing too much, right? It adds to the story of you could just stop. You could just stop. But that's not the case. And so if you switch from looking at it as overfunctioning to actually, I'm experiencing anxiety. And anxiety is not an emotion. Anxiety is actually a cascade of nervous system responses to conflicting thoughts. It's a state of nervous system dysregulation. And so when you look at it this way, then you understand that your overfunctioning isn't just something that you can just turn off. It's not something you can just stop doing. It's actually coming from your entire full body system detecting a threat and having a fear response. It's essentially locking you into a behavior, which is what it feels right now to be the safest path, right? The safest behavioral pattern that's going to make sure that you stay alive, you stay connected, even if you're not really living and the connections that you're upholding in this system are not actually supportive or healthy. When we try to treat overfunctioning by just setting boundaries and more spa days and trying to force ourselves to feel a sense of calm without actually treating the anxiety, then we're not going to have the tools for when that system pushes. So before you set the boundary, treat the anxiety. Treat the anxiety. Don't go forward and set that boundary until you know how to regulate your nervous system so that when you do get pushback from the system for setting boundaries and having new limits, you actually know how to calm your nervous system, you know how to regulate and hold that boundary. Because when you have pushback, right? Let's say you don't have those tools. You don't know how to manage that anxiety and you do get pushback from the system. That's going to push you into a further dysregulated state. And I have experienced this. This led to years of burnout, really feeling locked in nervous system wise, knowing I want to take these steps, but I feel terrified, right? Why can't I get myself to do these things? Right, because when I actually took steps to set boundaries, no longer overfunction, take care of myself, take care of my needs, my own dreams and desires, I got so much pushback and my nervous system said, okay, it's not safe for me to do any of that, right? It's like I kind of knew before, but now I really know it's not safe, right? Now I've just ingrained even further that lack of safety. And so then it took a lot of time, giving myself a generous amount of time of learning to reset my nervous system and make sure I have the tools to manage the anxiety and, more importantly, manage other people's anxiety, my own anxiety about other people's anxiety and their ways of trying to control me. And so when we take this approach, this means we can actually set boundaries and come what may, we know what to handle. We know how to, because especially in those systems that are coercive, that say, hey, because of your gender, your race, your age, whatever it is, you have to take all these responsibilities and other people don't have to show up. Especially in those systems, you're going to come against a lot of pushback, not just in other people, but internally, because you have internalized that system. That is why you are overfunctioning. It's not because you are just incapable of setting boundaries, you're not holding your boundaries. It's not a shame thing. It's so deeply encoded in your nervous system. It feels so deeply unsafe that your body is not letting you do otherwise. And so when we learn how to manage the anxiety first, then the boundaries can come with ease. And we know how to manage other people's anxiety, their own kind of pushback against our own nervous system. We get to manage that without internalizing it. Just because they are feeling, oh, you don't care about me, right? They might be projecting whatever they want to project. And we get to stay grounded and show care and love, but say, hey, this is where I begin and end. and this is where you are, right? This is where you begin and end. We don't need to fuse any longer. I get to be my own separate self and meet my needs without coming into your realm. In order to stop overfunctioning, we have to address the anxiety. If you want to stop overfunctioning, if you want to stop piling on more on your plate than you can chew, then you want to address the anxiety first and then set the boundary. Then set the boundary. That way, you know how to soothe yourself when the pushback does come, and you also know how to navigate some other people's anxiety and their pushback. So if you would like to learn how to do that, I am teaching a 7-week live program, Soften and Replenish. We're going to be fusing the wisdom of the vagus nerve with the potency of conscious pleasure. So actually combating stress and anxiety from a state of pleasure, what feels good, retraining your nervous system to actually find pleasure in caring for yourself and almost like dis-ease. Then we're going to flip the switch. So you feel the dis-ease and going outside of yourself. You're going to actually learn to tune into your nervous system so well that you can feel that subtle shift. And one of the things we don't actually talk about a lot is that you're actually getting a sneaky dopamine hit from being hyper vigilant and over functioning, because whenever you're scanning for threats, your brain loves it when you do that. It says, oh, we're doing something that's going to feed our survival, is going to help us survive. It's going to make sure that we stay safe. And so your brain's like, okay, you're doing a good thing. So I'm going to give you a dopamine hit every time you do that. And so we need to now train our brains to do the opposite, to find a sense of pleasure from relaxing and releasing control and trusting that others can take care of their part. And as a certified intimacy coach who specializes in Tantra, this is like my yummy bread and butter. This is why conscious pleasure is so impactful. It is so helpful for those of us who have CPTSD, for recovering people pleasers, recovering from codependency, for recovering from narcissistic abuse, who have felt that ingrained sense of like, I cannot step out of the system, otherwise there's going to be a big backlash. And even when you leave the system, you still carry that within your body. Conscious pleasure helps you to retrain your nervous system to find pleasure in relaxing again, because right now you're not able to find pleasure in relaxing. It feels terrifying. It's actually adding to dysregulation because you haven't addressed the anxiety and also this dopamine switch that is going. So I want to help you break that cycle, soften and replenish. We're blending the wisdom of the vagus nerve and these awesome potent tools from conscious pleasure practices to help you retrain your nervous system. And I'm going to teach you all about nervous system regulation and what you can do to better manage your anxiety and make sure that you have new systems in place in your day, in your life, that actually support your regulation, to set boundaries, right? It actually will feel natural because you'll feel resourced enough and strong enough internally to say no and not feel uncomfortable by other people's discomfort with your own boundaries. And you'll also be able to feel where your natural boundaries are, because internally, right, when you actually connect to the essence of you, you can actually feel where you are a yes to. And it's not this kind of harsh, sometimes we feel like with boundaries, we have to be harsh, right? You can actually feel energetically what the system needs in order to kind of bring it back into health. And that doesn't mean you need to change the system. If you've got a toxic family dynamic or you're in a toxic workplace, I'm not saying it's going to be your responsibility to change the system. But once you actually feel where your core responsibility lies and where your edges are, then you get to show up as a healthy element within that system, and it's going to force others to show up differently. That might mean that the system falls apart and you have to find a new system that resonates with your new healthy, what you're putting out, right? Your new vibration on this. But as I've also noticed, sometimes even those who are, we would consider dysfunctional, they'll actually start to adjust in healthy ways. They'll actually start to learn how to show up differently because they're like, oh, something's changing in the air and there's room here. And now I can show up differently, right? So it doesn't mean that the system will change. I can't tell you how it will, right? I'm not psychic to that degree. But whenever we change how we show up in a system, it does kind of push the hands, it forces the hands of others to show up differently. Alrighty, so that's what I have for you. If you would like to go deeper into this topic, in April, we're starting the next cohort for Soften and Replenish. It's 7 weeks long. And it's just such a wonderful opportunity to connect in community. I know there's so many stressors right now. And so this program isn't just great for helping those of us who feel we're overfunctioning, but also it is really meeting the times, right? I decided to focus on nervous system regulation this year because last year, really, I was so dysregulated from everything going on in the world, in the news, just terrifying stuff. And I needed new tools. I needed to really commit to making sure that I was taking care of my nervous system so that I could show up more fully in all areas of my life. And I know you're also feeling that crunch. So this is a great opportunity to invest in something that's going to support you in many areas of your life. All right, so I hope you'll join me. And if you're new here, go ahead and hit like, hit follow if you want more conversations like this. I'll leave the link to join Soften and Replenish, the 7-week vagus nerve reset, down below in the description. Go ahead and give that a like. And if you want to learn more about nervous system regulation, check out this playlist on how to reset your nervous system. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Oh my God. They have like the floofiest tail. Look at them go. Oh my God. Literally wide-eyed, bushy-tailed. I've never seen that before. They look literally like fairies. Oh, there's a dog. That's why.